We are now under final actions, and I'm going to move up Councilor Pena's and Benton's bill, R-250, creating a cruising task force to explore the options of, and make recommendations to promote responsible cruising in the city of Albuquerque. Benton. Councilor Pena.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our 250 is creating a task force to explore options to make recommendations to promote responsible cruising in the city of Albuquerque. I move a do pass.
We have a motion and a second, and we have 8 individuals signed up to speak under this bill. I will call off the first 4 names, and then you can please, if you would please come forward and be prepared to speak. The first speaker is Tad Naminsky, followed by Susan Ramars, followed by Lorenzo Otero, followed by Nelson Gallegos.
I pass.
Okay, Tad Naminsky has chosen to pass. Susan? Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, new President, Mr. Sanchez, and the council. My name is Sue Reimars. I'm a member of the Albuquerque Council of Car Clubs, the Old Car Club of Albuquerque, and the Route 66 Association. Cruising is a very small part of the car community. Thousands of people from the United States and around the world travel to New Mexico to drive the Mother Road. The New Mexico car clubs are called on to entertain many of these groups. Few of our car clubs and few of our car people are ever paid for any of these services. As you mentioned previously, the Duke's Car Club just attended Paco's funeral in Aztec on Friday. We participate in funeral processions, veterans functions, the museum car show down in Old Town, which is held in May of every year, the Balloon Fiesta car show, the 4th of July show, Summerfest chemo opening, the Luna Lodge opening, Mayor's Gala, and 15 years of the Neon Cruise from Tramway to 7th and Central. Many funerals, church schools, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and Eagle Scouts. The car community gives and does not take anything from the city or county as far as funds are ever requested. There's no reason why any citizen with a car who has a license and drives should not be able to use this street at any time as long as we follow the directions. I have volunteered to go onto this committee, and I have already submitted an application to Ms. Pena. Do we have any questions?
Thank you for your time. Next speaker is Lorenzo House Otero. Nelson, if you want, you can take a seat.
Hello.
Thank you.
I would have sat down, but there's no chunky chairs in here, so. First of all, President Sanchez, councilwomen, councilmen, I appreciate your time out here in this serious matter. At least it's serious to us. The car community has been coming together for years and years. I know sometimes people view us through different eyes, and they see us through different ways. But if they only saw that the car club community comes together to do a lot of different things. We've helped homeless families get off the street. We get them into homes. Just this last weekend, Robert and Rachel and all these guys all came together, got a bunch of food, all pitched in money, and fed the homeless downtown. We do everything that we can to make sure that it's a positive movement and a positive way of life. Cruising's not a crime, it's a culture, and it's part of this beautiful culture that we've been given. I just appreciate everything that you guys are doing, especially you, Councilwoman Clarissa, for entering this into as a bill and trying to find a solution, because I think together there's nothing that we can't handle and there's nothing that we can't do to work it out. So I appreciate you guys. I appreciate everything you're doing. We just feel like we would love the right to continue to cruise, to make sure that our families and our kids still maintain and have that right to do the same thing as well. It's not just a Chicano thing or a white thing or a black thing or a brown thing. It's an us thing. And Albuquerque, New Mexico is a beautiful city. It's a beautiful state, and I'm proud to be from it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, Nelson Gallegos, followed by Robert Hernandez, followed by John Rodriguez. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, thank you for bringing this forward. Council members, thank you for hearing us on this matter. I'm 48 years old. Cruising predates me many years, I'm sure. I can remember cruising out here on the east side of town, and there were many responsible people back then. That being said, we appreciate you bringing this back to light now. We've been bounced all over this town. We've been bounced from the east side back to the west side, cruising parking lots in between that. I'm a neighborhood association president. I'm a member of SWAN. I own a classic car. I cruise, and I'm a responsible person out there. I can't say that I'm going to make everyone else out there responsible. Obviously, I can't do that. But the folks who are here, we're responsible. We're thankful to be given the opportunity to enjoy that lifestyle and keep it going. When I go out on Sundays, there are people who come up and say, hey, want to take a picture of your car? It is a draw, and it is a lifestyle. It's something that many people who are from out of state are amazed at the things that we do with our automobiles. And we're thankful for you guys bringing this back up. For that reason, I just want to say, through the light of what you guys are doing, we really appreciate it again. So thank you very much again for your time and consideration in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gagos. Robert Hernandez? Welcome.
Thank you, President Sanchez. Thank you, councils. I just want to bring up too exactly what everybody's just pretty much going to say the same thing about the lowrider community. But at the same time, not only that, we're just doing it for the community, we're doing it for the future for the kids, because we want them to look forward to something that they're going to have in the future, and we also want to help them to be positive and to do better things in life instead of doing what's going on right now as far as like drugs, killing themselves. I mean, just a bunch of things that's going on right now. And it's also about bringing out the hobby that we have, bringing out these beautiful cars and bringing them out to car shows and bringing the community together. That's what we want. We want our community to just be happy, and we want them to, just for all of us to be all happy and be as a family. That's what we call each other, family. Whether you're just friend or whether we don't know you or whatever the case is. We want to get involved with everything that we want to do and just make things positive, And like I said, it brings families together, it brings friends together, it brings a lot of joy, it brings a lot of happiness. There's nothing that we do wrong. And, again, you don't see anything negative. We like to get involved with the city and help them whatever it is that they need. Even if it was to say, you know what, can you guys do donations? Can you guys do this for us? We will be more than happy to get involved with you all. No matter what it is, even if it's doing a show and shine car show to do fundraisers and stuff like that. And again, we help the homeless too. So again, we want to thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for the help. Thank you for everything what you're doing for us, and we'll be more than happy to do what we got to do.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. John Rodriguez, followed by Eric Martinez, and the last speaker will be Paul Ryan McKinney. Welcome.
Thank you, President Sanchez and council members. I just wanted to come down and talk to you on behalf of our community. I myself am a small business owner here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'm also a cruiser. One of the things that I see the most is a passion for this city, and the people that you see sitting behind me are coming on their evening to spend it here to show you that, not just to talk to you about the problems of the city and everything else. We're trying to bring a solution to one of those, and one of those is the city image. One of our main goals and one of the purposes for us to be out there is to give a positive image out to not only our youth, but other people that come into our cities. We're kind of ambassadors, so to speak, to a certain extent. People come in to cruise Route 66 and to be on Central from time to time, and we've come across people from all over the world. And I'm proud to say that a lot of the gentlemen and ladies behind me here have been great ambassadors to those people to show them what our city and our community is about. I thank you very much for considering this, and I look forward to being a part of this in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, Eric Martinez. Welcome.
Thank you, President and Council. My name is Eric Martinez. I'm a local artist and business owner, downtown business owner on Central. And I own a studio gallery, and I'm in the business of art. And this culture is more than just important to the history and everything we grew up on, identify with, and something positive to look forward to with all the negative out there in the world. And we see that the kids coming up behind us and becoming to learn and appreciate that culture. It gives them something really positive to get into in a hobby. And beyond that, it's art. Some of these cars, a lot of people put not just a lot of money and time, but passion into these cars. It's an art form. They're rolling pieces of art. And that's starting to be recognized by museums, like the New Mexico History Museum in Santa Fe just had a exhibit, from what I understand, not too long ago. And you know, downtown, we're talking about revitalization, and I feel like this brings more business downtown, more vibrant, especially on Sundays, when Sundays are very, you know, if you go downtown on Sundays, it's not like the rest of the week. And I mean, it can be really even, for a lot of my clients, even scary downtown on Sundays. I gotta walk them to their cars sometimes. And the downtown community and the lowriding community, if anything, that provides, you know, people down there who care
Mr.
about
Martinez.
the community. And
Thank you.
thank you.
The last speaker is Paul Ryan McKinney on R-17-250.
Thank you, President Sanchez. Thank you, Councilor Pena, for trying to bring a little bit of liberty and freedom back to Albuquerque. Thank you, Councilor Benton, for co-sponsoring this. I'm not a car person and not a member of a car club. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I can tell you everybody I've met that's from a car club and is cruising and is a car person also tends to have a strong family. And if there's something that Albuquerque needs to improve our city and to improve our crime problems, it's strong families. So why not encourage these folks? They're not breaking any laws. There's some troublemakers out there that go and break laws. Get them for that. You know, we don't need another law to tell people that they can't cruise. The only recommendation I would make to Councilor Pena would be, I hope this ends in just repealing the bad ordinance. I mean, we don't need more. Just repeal the bad one and let folks live. You know, if somebody's speeding, pull them over for speeding. If they're drunk driving, pull them over for drunk driving. If they're racing, pull them over for racing. But if they're minding their own business, driving the car that they own on the road that they pay for, leave them alone. Let them be with their family. Let them raise their children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We are back on the bill for discussion. Are there any questions for the sponsors? Let's have Councilor Pena and Councilor Benton to close. Councilor Benton?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm an outsider. I've only been in Albuquerque for 42 years. So, but I remember 42 years ago, and I moved to Albuquerque, and some friend of mine, I can't remember who it was, sent me an article about lowriders, and it mentioned L.A. and it mentioned Albuquerque, and it was, you know, awesome. It was great stuff, and I thought I'm moving to a place with a really wonderful culture and something that very few other places have. And then I remember the whole thing with San Gabriel Park, right? Any of the old timers that are probably here remember that was kind of a dedicated or a place where where de facto, or I think, you know, the city probably figured, okay, well, there's a place where we can concentrate the activity and so forth. And then after a while, it kind of got pushed out of San Gabriel Park, you know, whatever, some folks may complain or whatever. And so it's been a movable feast, right? But it's a great culture. I love some of the statements that were made about, you know, the kids and the families and celebrating our culture and our unique place. And I fully agree that there isn't anything negative with most of the participants. But it's like with anything else with just basic order, right? You've got to maintain some order in a place like downtown. People, a lot of new folks are living downtown now. And representing downtown, even though I love lowriders, yeah, we have had some complaints. And they're not about you folks, I'll promise you. I'll bet you not one of those complaints had anything to do with the responsible cruisers. But yeah, they're bad actors mixed in with every part of society. And I think this is really what we were, Councilor Pena and I, you know, had a lot of discussion about this, and that recognizing that the responsible people can really help. It's just like with community policing, for instance. You know, you can't just complain about, well, I want a police in front of my house. You've got to be part of looking out for the safety of your neighborhood. And so it's sort of the same with cruising, right? If there's some crazy nuts that are like burning donuts downtown, not in lowriders, because you would never do that to a work of art, but with big trucks or whatever, you know, the folks that are blending in and taking advantage of the dynamic, that's what we really want to address. So we want to protect residents and businesses downtown, and we want to protect the right of people to celebrate great culture. So that's what this is about, and I encourage everybody who's spoken to be involved with the task force. And, you know, not everybody's going to be appointed to the task force, but to track the progress of that, and your friends who do get on the task force, I ask them what's going on with it and how's the discussion going. So, and thanks to Councilor Pena for bringing forth the idea of bringing the community together to discuss this.
Thank you, Councilor Benton. Councilor Pena.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Councilor Benton. You know, I asked Councilor Benton if he would be part of this resolution, just because I thought it was important, because it is in the middle of his district that he represents. And yes, I know that there is some concern in terms of some of the issues that we're having downtown, and he has to, you know, make sure that he addresses the concerns of all his constituents. But, you know, just being part of the cruising community here in the city of Albuquerque, I just really want to say I really appreciate some of the comments you guys made, you know, because it's really true. There's a lot of things that we do here in the city of Albuquerque that we haven't really truly embraced, and those are things that can help to turn Albuquerque around. You know, one of my issues is that, you know, when I'm hearing that the lowrider community, cruising community is out there and you know, kind of being pushed aside, it really concerns me, because as a city as a whole, you know, the lowrider and cruising community has always been there. The lady who testified about that it's so true, and I've said that time and time again, is that we have Summerfest, we have events, and, you know, we pay for entertainment, we pay for tents, we pay for all these different things as part of these celebrations that we have as a city. But yet, when we ask this community to come out and represent and show their cards, they're here at no cost to us, you know. So I really appreciate what you've done, and people don't realize, just like someone said as well, is that, you know, you guys go out and you do fundraisers, you pull together not only as a community but as a family to support each other. And sometimes when you guys do have those bad actors, if you will, those guys are called out, and, you know, and you don't allow them to be a part of that. So I just really want to say thank you, Councilor Benton. I hope we do justice on this. And as the one last speaker said about repealing it, I definitely think that, you know, when we have an ordinance on the city of Albuquerque books that say that cruising is a threat to public health, safety, and welfare. I really have some issue with that, and knowing that, you know, we have a lowrider car in the Smithsonian at the National Museum of American History. When we're saying that that's part of our history, we better make sure we're an example of that here in New Mexico and Albuquerque in particular. So thank you. I urge your support.
We have a motion and a second for approval of R-250. All those in favor signify by saying yes. Yes? Opposed? That carries unanimously. My apologies to the two councilors that wanted to make a statement, Councilor Borrego and Councilor Jones.
Thank you, and I would still
I had gone
vote
to
for
closing.
this, but I just want to make sure everyone understands. We did not vote to repeal anything. We voted to form a task force to look at this. So just want to make sure that everybody understands that there's a big difference here, so thank you.
Councilor Borrego.
I want to thank all of you for being here this evening and speaking, you know, your feelings about this particular issue. It reminds me of, you guys have heard that poem that says, "For everything there is a season," and that's what it reminds me of. If you all remember that poem or that prayer. And in New Mexico, we're a very diverse culture. And we have our Native Americans, we have our lowriders, we have, you know, what we used to refer to as our Anglo community, which is broken down into many different types of people, and our Hispanic community, and our Asian. I mean, I can go on and on, obviously, but the point is that we are a diverse culture in New Mexico, and we need to continue to embrace that and embrace all cultures that come before, you know, to live in our land of enchantment. So having grown up in Espanola and having cruised since I was about 12 years old, 13 maybe, and then when I moved to Albuquerque and I found kind of a home on Central Avenue with cruising when we were in college, I think that this is something that is it's part of sort of it's ingrained in, you know, part of our community. And there's a place for all of us. And that's what I'm trying to say tonight. And I appreciate Councilor Pena and I appreciate Councilor Benton for bringing this forward and for providing that place for everyone to live happily in New Mexico.
Thank you. My apologies, but please hold your applause. Okay, let's go to final actions. Item C, Councilor Davis, O-60.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me get myself back in order. Mr. President, O-60 enacts the Albuquerque Security Assistance Funding Zone Ordinance, which we just call the SAFE Zone. It essentially allows businesses to form a group together in a particular residential or high commercial, culturally significant area to partner with APD to create a crime zone and a crime plan with APD to address particular concerns. And it allows the city to assist them in doing that by helping to fund particular parts of that plan. It's a great way for us to add new dollars into public safety prevention by freeing up police officers to respond to calls in our neighborhoods and empowering our businesses to take responsibility from some of their business. So with that, I'll make a motion to do pass on O-1760.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Jones. Did anyone sign up to speak? Let's open it up for discussion by this council. Are there any questions? Councilor Benton.
Yeah, I appreciate Councilor Davis's work on this. I think this is, of course, this isn't creating any of these. This is really what I like about it, is just mentioning community policing and how we've all got to pitch in. And this is the definition of that, where we're asking folks in these business districts who are interested in augmenting their public safety protection to band together and pitch in with an equal match from the city, as long as they provide us with a good program that the council feels is going to be effective. And then the council will vote to approve these based on plans that are drawn up by public citizens and business people. So it's a real common sense idea, and I think it'll be helpful for tourism. You know, there was some, the staff write-up mentioned, you know, possible funding sources, and we don't need to get into the detail of that because we don't have to do that until such time as some of these come forward. But there are funding sources available for this, and I think it's certainly, we see with the economic forecast that tourism and visitors are one of our bright spots, even in a pretty tough times here economically. So I think it'll be very good for that, from that aspect, and also just what we call, I mean, it's local visitors from inside our city that might want to just visit another part of town and enjoy it and feel safe. So appreciate the work by Councilor Davis.
Council Vice President Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I can see if the administration wants to weigh in on this.
Thank you, Council President Sanchez, Councilor Harris, Councilor Davis. The administration is generally supportive of it, budget permitting, and so as Councilor Benton pointed out, that's always going to be a constraint, and not just financially, but in terms of officer time, cars, and all of those things. But provided we can make those work, we would be supportive. Thank you.
Councilor Gibson.
Thank you, Mr. President. And actually, that was a question that I have about this bill. Will this reduce availability for officers throughout the city? Maybe the sponsor can answer.
Mr. President, if I may, yeah, Councilor Gibson, that's a great question. This actually came about because hearing from Central Avenue businesses that we've all been working with, in particular, we'll remember over the summer when downtown businesses sort of said we've had enough, and asked APD to step up and do a tactical plan around First and Central. And what we found was that during that time, APD deployed a lot of officers, the camera trailers, a lot of sort of community policing basics for that neighborhood. But really, some of those problems just were pushed further east and west on Central that I know we talked about for our councilors on the west side and in the Nob Hill and up towards your area. And so what we found was that when the APD moved along after that TAC plan, many of those problems returned, and the APD didn't have a tool, or the city didn't have a tool to make the successful pieces of those work. And so I want to give credit to the Central Avenue business groups, particularly those around the Harvard and the UNM area, who wanted to try something different. So we copied APD's TAC plan in that area, but at the end, we took some data. And so what we asked APD was help us come up with a plan, partly to be supported by the businesses. And so some of them allowed APD access to their cameras, and we've seen that program work already. Others, they have private security officers and closed off some problem areas, added some new lighting. And so what we found was when APD was available for overtime to support that effort, crime went down. But when the police officers left, crime came back up again. But as the businesses stood up and improved the cameras or lighting or more visible to support those pieces, crime went back down. And so that really gave the idea here. And so what we really wanted to say is APD is looking for a partner so that we don't have to deploy a cop on every corner, but instead to where they can partner with the community, in this case about auto theft, and identify that we need some more street lights in this area and a camera on the corner. We can do that, and that frees up officers from having to write the reports after, and hopefully frees them up from taking the reports beforehand.
So it sounds like the answer that I'm getting from that is that it will not remove officers from other parts of the city during their regular routine shift, but they'll be using, I think they call it chief's overtime.
That's certainly, Councilor Gibson, that's certainly one of the options that would be available if APD agrees in the design of the crime plan using data that officers need to be present. What we've seen is APD more often has been able to say, you need to get your security guards from the guy on this corner and that corner to work together. Maybe if you shared your camera data together or did some other work, that officers don't have to be there as a deterrent. The businesses can actually take responsibility for making a safer environment. Because APD officers will never, even on chief's overtime, will never be able to be everywhere 24/7. They're still a response force in many cases, and so we're trying to beef up the deterrent options so officers can be back in our neighborhoods.
Right. So what concerns me is this. Businesses, boy, that's loud. The businesses that may be smaller or pretty narrow margin, on their profit margin. Many of them small businesses might benefit from something like this, but
That's right.
they may not be in an area where there's enough of them, or some of the higher end retailers and whatnot that they could afford to do this. So, it bothers me a little bit. It seems like we're making two classes, and that bothers me. I'm going to go ahead and support this, but I think that this is something we're going to really have to keep an eye on and see. Hopefully, it'll bring down the crime in those areas. I hope that happens, but then I hope it doesn't move to other places where they just can't afford to come together and put up the money to start this on their own.
Thank you, Councilor
you.
Gibson. And Mr. President, if I could just respond briefly, I think.
Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. What we found in working the difference in the downtown neighborhood or downtown groups and the Harvard Business Associations, if you've been to the 100 block of Harvard and the Brickyard District, if you haven't, you should come and spend some money there. There are about 22, if I remember right, business licenses in that one block on both sides of the street. But only 2 of them sort of were large enough to afford some accessory security options. But the neighbors were sort of willing to chip in a few dollars. And so the one, and I know one of our businesses was here earlier tonight but left because he has to run a business tomorrow. But he was paying $5,000 a month for a security guard to watch the parking lot in the front. If other businesses wanted to join them in that effort, spreading that single cost over 20 businesses made it $250 a month. And we had a meeting and they all agreed, no matter how small, that was worth the investment for them to have access to that. And so that's really where this idea came from. You're absolutely right. It's not going to include everybody in the city, but it's certainly a new tool in the toolbox. And at this point, we'll take all we can get.
Councilor Pena, then back to Council Vice President Harris.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too, appreciate Councilor Davis's efforts, but, Councilor Gibson, I think you talked yourself right out of a good idea. I just really have some concerns about it creating a class, 2 different classes, and that resources would be taken from police to concentrate on certain areas. And I understand tourism is important to the city as a whole, and we need to concentrate on those areas and make sure that we reduce crime as a city as a whole. But I would hate for there to be so much focus on one area that it pushes it out to other areas like West Central, and then West Central really don't have the resources. A lot of those business owners don't have the resources to be able to do the same thing. So although I appreciate it, it sounds like you have some general support for it, I just really just think that it creates a class difference. I'd like to ask the city staff, would this take, so for example, something like this happens and police officers are, dedicated to a certain area. So would it take from existing officers that we have?
Council President, Councilor Pena, as Councilor Davis stated, it really depends on the plan that the group would come up with. Any APD staff that would be used for any of these plans would be, it would be assumed that they would be working overtime and not their regular shift. So in that way, they wouldn't be removing cops from one area to serve another.
So I didn't, okay.
So we wouldn't be taking away from APD resources in a certain area to cover another area. It would just be up to those individual cops who want to work overtime if the plan with that area,
So Mr.
called for
President, so give me an example of when we didn't use chiefs overtime.
So I just want to talk a little bit about the Chiefs Overtime Program. So it's different than regular overtime that an officer has to work to cover shifts that are deficient because we don't have enough sworn officers. Businesses, yeah.
Just let me interject. So it's like when some of the churches pay chiefs overtime.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
And so they are on the hook to pay to recover the cost of that overtime. They are billed, the APD collects that money and it goes back into the general fund.
Councilor Pena, if I could offer you a real-time answer, if it's okay with you. In the Harvard Avenue plan that was designed in partnership between APD's crime prevention specialist in the Southeast Heights and the neighbors, there were times that were identified where APD officers were requested through Chiefs Overtime as a part of APD's community policing program. And, they have some money for this, for community programs, and we've all used them for TAC plans. But during the rest of the day, the program didn't require police officers at all, but it did require that APD deploy a camera, that we do some extra improvements to the neighborhood, lighting, as I mentioned, and others. And so what's anticipated here in the process is that a group comes together of businesses, they work with APD using crime analysis. APD helps them generate a plan that both APD can support and that they feel can impact the particular crime. Some may include Chiefs Overtime, and that would include an analysis from the city and from the administration on whether they have the resources to provide that, and would have to bring that to the council for approval. The other would be they may not have that at all. They may simply say we need more cameras and lighting, and we can support that as well. And so I think each would be individual. It would have to be approved by the chief of police and approved by this council before they would go into effect, if that helps.
But if you give an example of, so we match dollars, so if it was 100,000 and 100,000, it's still $100,000 aside from the chief's overtime. It's $100,000 that we could utilize somewhere else in the budget as to hiring an officer or doing some other type of thing that would cover the city as a whole, correct?
And Councilor Pena, in some ways, I think you're right. I think what we've got here is we're using different types of funding to bring to APD. So lodger's tax, for instance, for those areas, including those on the west side that are deemed touristically important or culturally significant. It allows us to use new money. And as we've seen, ACVB and the lodger's tax has been increasing over the last several quarters pretty regularly. But part of that being successful is that folks feel safe and don't have their cars stolen there. And so we're trying to bring new dollar sources to APD without hitting the general fund.
Council Vice President Harris, and then we'll go back to Councilor Gibson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. And I do appreciate the creativity of this bill, and I will vote for it, but I think it's just a little bit too optimistic to think that with our officer shortage that we can actually do this hardly, at all with using police officers without taking them from someplace where they're needed. So I'm going to be very cautious on any actual resolution that comes forward because I was really concerned, for instance, when we did the TAC plan downtown, we were going through the budget season with the mayor, and it was a kind of a tense position for me at that time, chairman of the budget committee and the mayor at the time, in our whole city in terms of the police and funding and all that. So I didn't say anything, but oh boy, when he announced that TAC plan, I was thinking, where are these cops coming from? They're coming from the foothills, that's where they're coming from. Or they're coming from the Northeast Area Command, or they're coming from the Southeast Area Command, where they're coming from someplace. They're not just appearing. So, and when you say Chiefs Overtime, there's still only so many police officers, and they can only work so much. And so if you use them for Chiefs Overtime, then that police officer is not going to be able to use regular overtime or have enough energy for regular overtime. Our budget right now, even though we have vacancy savings, we should, but it all gets used up by overtime because our cops are just working their you-know-what's off. So I'm going to be watching this very carefully when we actually have one of these resolutions, and I hope that we can get our numbers up so we can do these sort of creative things. Because I think we need our numbers to be up before we can really engage in a lot of community-based policing and community programs and creative programs like this. And if we have our numbers, I think this is a great idea. Thanks.
Councilor Gibson, then we'll go to Councilor Borrego.
There we go. Thank you. What I said, and I'll say it again, is that I think we really need to keep an eye on this and assess how, if at all, this changes crime patterns in the city. So I wonder if the sponsor would be willing to revisit this after, I don't know, a 6-month period, a 12-month period, and we really might be able to learn something from it that we can use, citywide. Well, presumably this resolution is available to everybody within the city. But how would you feel about that if we made an amendment that said that we would, revisit this after 12 months?
Councilor Davis?
If I could clarify, I'm sorry, Councilor Gibson, you mean pass it tonight, let them get started, do some trials, and then revisit the program in 12 months?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. I think that would be
Okay.
fine. I think it's a
You'd be
tool that APD could use to help decide if it works, and I think that's the design, so I wouldn't be opposed to that if
Okay.
you offered that.
So you'd be amenable to an amendment then, saying as much?
Mr. Yar, can we do that without a?
Mr. President, Councilor Davis, if you could repeat that amendment for us, yes, we can.
I
Put
think
that in.
we would just add a sunset clause or a reauthorization clause that says that council shall reauthorize the program in 12 months.
Yeah, I'm not even suggesting a sunset, that, just that it be reviewed after 6 months and, make a determination.
Mr. President, Councilor Davis, so it would read something like, we would just add the last section onto the resolution that would state that the city council shall review and reaffirm this program 12 months after the date of enactment.
Would that be okay, Councilor Gibson?
Sure, review effectiveness, and impact on the city. Leave it open like that.
Do you want, Councilor Benton?
On this, I think, first of all, someone's got to come forward with a proposal to us.
Yep.
And the
So
money.
it's very hard to say that a year from now, we would have even had one or experienced it or be in the middle of evaluating it. I think this has a built-in, the built-in mechanism is that the council has to approve any one of these plans and its budget. And that would be the time to determine from APD whether they think it's a good plan and ask all the questions we want about it, determine whether it's taking from anyone else or not, or any other area or not, and then subsequent to its implementation, evaluating whether it worked or not. I don't think 1 year is a reasonable time to be doing that, and I don't think we even need to do this. I mean, I oppose the amendment because I don't think, I think we're just creating contingencies for something that doesn't need one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And right now, there's just additional language added to the bill. There's not an amendment yet on the table.
Well,
We're just,
if I may just say,
Councilor Gibson.
if nobody's come forward and the council hasn't passed anything, then there would be nothing to evaluate.
Mr. President, may I just
Simple.
make a clarification?
Councilor
to make
Davis.
it easy? Just to clarify, if this makes it easier, it may sort of already be there. Section 3, item C, says that item number 4 says that the designation as a safe zone is valid only for 1 year, and that the city council has to reconsider and readopt the findings on an annual basis in order for an area to maintain that designation and continue to receive funding. So I think that trigger is probably there anyway, meaning that if we started one, say in June, it wouldn't last any longer unless it comes back. So there is sort of an automatic trigger. Would that satisfy your concern, Councilor Gibson?
Councilor Gibson.
Okay, so that just brings up a question. And it seems like that we would be talking about not only the effect, and hopefully it's a good effect, on the subject area, but then any effects, negative effects other places or the city as a whole. Both of those things would be considered, correct?
Mr. President and Councilor Gibson, I believe so. And part of the development of the plan, as it's articulated here and as it's been done in TAC plans before, is an analysis of all the conditions to be considered going in and the conditions to be studied on the way out. And so I think that's included here. Certainly it would be in the practice, in my experience with APD, and the way they've done it and the way we've attempted to write this here. I think it would work that way.
Councilor Borrego.
Councilor Davis, I see this as a really good community policing tool, and I think it's really, in theory, brilliant. I would say that I am concerned about the funding for APD, and I am going to be as well very, very curious to see how, this would impact that or not, because I'm going to say police first. But in theory, I think this is really a good community policing tool. I would like to see it not only on Central Avenue. I have areas in my district that have commercial areas. The second part of my comment is, I wonder if you really meant a security assistant funding district as opposed to a zone, and if you would consider that as possibly a friendly amendment. And the reason that I say that is because the zoning code has zones, and there is a very definitive definition of what a zone is. So, you know, when I think of a zone, I think of, you know, commercial or residential or office. So I wonder if you would consider that as maybe a friendly amendment.
Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Borrego, thank you. I absolutely would. If it's okay, we'll just, with Ms. Yar or Ms. Ortega, we can just make those necessary adjustments, removing zones and replace them with district as a.
Yes, Mr. President, Councilor Davis, if you can make a motion and yes.
Go ahead if you'd
Would you
like.
Mr.
But
Chair?
maybe I think Councilor Harris is going to have a comment on it after. Yes, ma'am.
I'm still kind of thinking through it. My instinct, just pure instinct at this point, I posed the motion because zone is land use, and this is not land use, I don't think.
That's what my point is, exactly.
So why call it a zone if it's not land use? I think it's just a different animal completely, so.
Yeah, and let me explain my thinking regarding this. When we did the downtown action team, we actually created a business district within the Central Avenue area between, you know, First Street and I think 10th Street. And that was many years, that was in the 90s. And we did it wasn't considered a district, it wasn't considered a zone. And so, you know, in my thinking and kind of going back to those days, you know, it reminds me of a business district.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is really your intent in that. And so that's why I'm raising the issue.
If you want to
Should I make
that
the
amendment,
motion?
and we'll.
Go ahead.
I would like
Councilor
to
Bergen.
propose that we amend the language, enacting the Albuquerque Security Assistant Funding District Ordinance rather than zone throughout.
Second.
We have this is amendment number 1 to O-60. We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed? That carries. We're back on the bill. Councilor Pena.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I know we keep talking about, you know, this not happening in other areas of the city. So one of the characteristics that has to be met is the area's commercial or arts and cultural district with significant economic development, art, cultural impact, tourist-related facilities and attractions or tourist-related transportation opportunities is one of significant importance to the city of Albuquerque. So we're really talking about a select area, and I know that, you know, with the set-aside bill, there was $200,000 set aside. I don't know if you already have an area that you're considering or people that you're working with. But, you know, to me, this language is very specific to a certain area, and it's really tourist related.
And Councilor Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President and Councilor Pena. You're absolutely right. We worked on this with city staff in order to include as many diverse funding sources as possible, which might include lodgers and other tax. And we also wanted to be sure it was clear that this was not, that this was designed around commercial areas that are generating GRT that the city uses for neighborhood policing and other things. We're open to other ideas, certainly, if we want to come back and amend this and add in other language that might include it. I think what I do want to point out is it's, because of all those pieces, and if you sort of apply the comp plan to this definition, almost any economic area in the city, whether it's a strip mall or whatever, could apply for this and would be eligible, simply because of that definition. It's not a Central Avenue bill at all. In fact, it was deliberately expanded to include some things that might include, say, hotels and all of Route 66, some of the malls on the west side, the shopping centers, really anything that's not residential in nature. And we tried to track that as closely as possible as we could to make it as diverse and applicable to any city council district. We don't have we don't have any particular folks in mind because this hasn't been there, but we know that neighborhoods have been working on this, business alliances have been working on this, and to Councilor Borrego's point, for those of you who know bids really well, you'll recognize this process because we copied it over from the bid ordinance. because we think this is an excellent way to start bringing businesses together in a way that they can solve a problem and contribute together. And I personally hope that if they're successful in solving crime or a particular crime threat in their neighborhood, that they move forward into creating their own bid to create other revenue for other community services in their area. But you're absolutely right in both of those regards.
Councilor Pena? Are there any other comments or questions? Let's go to Councilor Davis to close.
I think we've done it. Thank you, Councilor Sanchez, and thank you to the councilors. I think this is just another tool in the toolbox. It only makes that authorization and requires everybody to work with APD, to do their community policing work, to learn more about community policing, and come back to the city council for approval of those. And so I think this is an important step to move us forward, and so I urge your support.
We have a motion and a second as amended for O-60. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That carries on an 8-1 vote.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is Councilor Benton, O-61.
Thank you, Mr. President. O-61 is amending the revised ordinances of Albuquerque relating to the Albuquerque Rapid Transit Program and the operation and use of transit vehicles and facilities. And I'll move a do pass.
We have a motion and a second by Councilor Jones. Did anyone sign up to speak? We will open it up for discussion to the council.
Council President Sanchez, just to give a brief, I think the write-up that Tom Menicucci did was very good. This is really a fairly simple bill. It really applies to the use of the facilities, so that is a bus or a station, must be by people who intend to actually use it for its intended purpose. In other words, this is not a place where you could just hang out if you don't have a ticket and you're not planning to use the station. And it does, of course, provide for the penalties, which is part of the whole design of this and other modern transit systems. Instead of bothering the driver or someone with taking a ticket and making change or whatever they do, it's based on random checks of your proof of payment. So it provides the penalties for riding and using the system without proof of payment or for hanging around just for the fun of it, which, you know, I could see how it might be fun to sit at the station, but it really reserving the station for people who are using it, except across the street, because some of the stations are also a means of getting across the street safely with a signalized crossing. And then the only other real component is smoking around the station that we needed to clarify based on our existing anti-smoking restriction ordinances, that this would apply around an ART station. So that's what it is.
Are there any other questions? Councilor Benton, was that your closing?
I think it is. I urge your support.
We have a motion and a second for O-61. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes, opposed? That carries unanimously. We are now under item 15, other business, approval of committee appointments. I move approval of the committee appointments dated December the 15th as distributed on Friday and available in your iPads. We have a motion and a second by Council Vice President Harris. Are there any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes, opposed? That carries unanimously. We are at the end of the meeting, and I would like to wish each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy Holiday. If there's no further business before this council, this meeting is adjourned.